With the sun just beginning to break through the horizon over the stunning Montana mountains, my husband David and I embarked on our adventure towards the lake we had planned to make camp at, a day's hike away. While David and I have gone on numerous hikes before, none have delved as deeply into the wilderness as this one. Much of our journey took us off the beaten path, highlighting the necessity of a compass and map. With each step, we distance ourselves from the familiar, venturing further into the uncharted depths of the forest. The day's trek undoubtedly presented its struggles and challenges, which really tested my endurance. However, the breathtaking scene that awaited us upon reaching our destination, a tranquil lake cradled by a natural amphitheater of trees, assured us of the serenity we had been seeking. The rest of the evening drifted by in peaceful ease, as we set up our tent and gathered around the campfire, cooking our evening meal and sharing tales of our hike and the surrounding beauty. The sunset painted the sky, leaving us with its lingering impact. In the last fleeting moments before the sun dipped below the mountainous horizon across the lake, David, scanning the area with binoculars, caught sight of something in the distance. "Lisa, come take a look at this," he exclaimed, passing me the binoculars and indicating where to look. And there, as I refocused the lenses, across the water stood a man, observing us through his own set of binoculars. It appeared he was carrying a rifle. "Do you think he's out there by himself?" I pondered aloud, breaking the silence as I glanced at David. "What do you mean?" he inquired. "The man across the lake," I clarified. As I responded, he reached for the binoculars. He then explained that he hadn't spotted a person, but instead a gathering of deer he thought might interest me. I attempted to indicate the tree line where I had seen the figure, but he was no longer visible. The final moments of the evening slipped away rapidly, making it impossible to try to spot anything across the lake anymore. As odd as it was spotting someone just standing there gazing at us, we figured it was only another hiker, relishing the peaceful solitude of the secluded lake. Gradually, the stars began to emerge one by one, dotting the sky above. Amidst the ongoing sounds of nocturnal creatures and the crackling campfire, a new addition emerged: the distinct calls of coyotes. While their presence always made me a bit uneasy, I had grown more familiar with their howls over time. If there were any genuine dangers lurking in these parts, it would be the native brown and black bears. In the process of arranging the area before sleep, my attention was drawn to the sound of branches breaking not far off. The distinct sound suggested movement nearby. I couldn't shake off the sense of unease, particularly since I found myself a little way from the campfire, enveloped in darkness while hanging our bags. The noises grew louder, yet attempting to discern their source in the darkness proved silly, until I clicked on the flashlight I had in hand. I illuminated the obscurity of the woods, silently praying not to encounter anything dangerous. "Hello?" I called out, the words escaping me instinctively, but they echoed back only with silence, as the flashlight cast ghostly shadows among the trees. "Everything all right?" David asked as I rejoined him. I reassured him that everything was fine, though I admitted feeling a bit spooked from the noises. With that, we retreated into the tent, zipping it shut, settling into our sleeping bags, and preparing for rest. Just as I began to drift off, I was startled awake by the familiar sounds of snapping twigs and branches nearby, signaling movement once more outside. Initially hesitant to disturb David, I waited for a moment, but as the noises grew louder, I shook him awake. As he woke up, I informed him of the noises I had heard outside. Pausing to listen, we found the night silent once more. David convinced it was probably some passing animals. Preferring not to overreact, I acknowledged that such sounds are common in the wilderness at night. As I lay awake, lost in my thoughts, the silence was shattered, not by only another branch cracking, but also by the shadow outline on the thin yellow nylon of our tent, cast by the faint glow of the fire outside. Once more, I woke up David, motioning towards the source of the noise. As we watched the figure pass by our tent, It became evident from the distinct sound of footsteps and the silhouette against the tense fabric that it was a person. David and I exchanged terrified looks, our hearts pounding with fear, as we remained silently hoping the intruder would move along. Focused intently on the shifting shadow, I could make out a definite outline of an axe. My eyes widened in horror as David glanced at me, placing his finger over his lips in a silent plea to maintain our silence. The mere thought of that axe crunching through me filled me with an overwhelming terror, paralyzing me as I sat motionless, squeezing my eyes shut in a desperate attempt to ward off the fear. All I could do was silently plead for the man to pass by without a problem. Meanwhile, David carefully and quietly retrieved a can of bear spray, recognizing it as our best line of defense in that moment. Unfamiliar with how to use the bear spray, as we have never carried it prior to this trip, we were uncertain of its effectiveness. Then, coincidentally, new sounds suddenly emerged nearby, this time resembling the deep moan of a bear. Surprisingly, in that moment, the realization that it might be a bear brought tremendous relief, as it appeared to startle the man lurking outside the tent. As the shadow gradually faded away with the departing footsteps, David and I remained silent, anticipating the possibility of another visitor. We made our way out of our sleeping bags as we continued to intently listen. Thankfully, the only unsettling noises we heard for the next several minutes or so were the distant calls of coyotes. Emerging cautiously from the tent, David gripped the bear spray tightly as we swept the flashlights across the surroundings, searching for any signs of danger, yet finding only the engulfing darkness of the forest. I joined him outside, staying nearby to offer support. Still shaken with fear, I couldn't fathom how I would manage to sleep for the rest of the night, knowing that a dangerous man and perhaps a bear were nearby. "Do you hear that?" David's voice broke through my thoughts, increasing my already heightened anxiety. As I strained to listen, I discerned the sound of whistling, coupled with the soft approach of footsteps once more. Moments later, after David and I had both concealed ourselves behind the tent, the man began to emerge, barely illuminated by the fire we had recently tended to. "I ain't here to cause no harm," we heard in a rugged backwoods accent. As the figure drew near, I identified an older man holding a rifle. It was no doubt the same individual I had seen across the lake earlier. "What's your business here?" David demanded, his voice tinged with anger, as the old man casually strolled towards the camp. His gaze shifted between David and me, before returning to David. "Ain't looking for trouble, but young Bucksy might be," he replied. "You folks know where you're at?" With apprehension, we exchanged words with the old man. He recounted the tale of young Bucksy, known for his aggressive behavior amongst the others residing in the hills. Rumors suggested he had brutally slaughtered a group of hikers in this area and tossed their remains in the lake just a few years back. Shivers were crawling up my spine, and I looked around the dark surroundings as the old man continued his story, his face illuminated by the campfire's glow. He indicated that young Bucksy resided in a shack on our side of the lake. Surprised when seeing us, he felt compelled to offer us a warning. That was the tipping point for me, and David and I quickly reached an agreement. We needed to depart immediately to avoid the potential confrontation with young Bucksy. Expressing our gratitude to the old man, we watched just how ominously he had entered camp. He vanished back into the shadows, leaving us with nothing more to say except another warning. Leaving our tent behind, we focused on making a steady exit, motivated by the urgency to distance ourselves from young Bucksy. Despite our fatigue, the surge of adrenaline fueled our confidence in navigating the hike back in the darkness. After all, it seemed a lesser risk than spending the night next to a potential menacing murderer. Carefully, we retraced our steps along the familiar route, relying on our accumulated knowledge to guide us. At many times, it seemed as though we were being followed, signs marked by the continued strange noises following us, making any rest pass quickly. The sensation of being watched the entire time never calmed. I couldn't shake the distinct impression that, on several occasions, I heard the chilling sound of an axe striking a tree, echoing its contact throughout the dark, quiet forest, a terrifying realization of him attempting to drive us away. Despite the night being long and restless, a long period of time elapsed without any discernible noises or sights. Progressing under the radiance of the bright moon, we continued our hike through the gradually thinning forest until sheer exhaustion took its toll, forcing us to find rest. Though with only best and adventurous intentions, our quest for solitude had evolved into a stark reminder on the unpredictability of the wild. Far beyond the beaten paths, there exist forces that typically dwell only in our deepest nightmares.